she lost her mom when she was like 16. It makes me so sad. And she just got married last week. And she messaged me and said, hey, we used to work together at this orthodontist.
It feels like that camera is like super zoomed in.
And,
You're 4 feet away, but it looks like.
Here's your face.
Go ahead and get started. Go ahead.
They're thanking for self.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys,
I did not.
I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I need your print.
I might put this on.
I printed like 4. Sure. Oh, they're not collated. Did it not do it? It's okay. Sorry.
That's what I'm gonna do today.
Because you schedule it all out, and then I have stuff scheduled out for like, I'll do a week in advance because some of the houses go under contract. But,
You guys can share.
I'm gonna grab it, and then,
I might have to show me how to do that, because zero blue out.
Is everybody about ready? I'm gonna go ahead and get started while this, wait a minute. We have 2 new people, or are they helping you do something?
They're helping me get the Zoom meeting live.
Do you have anybody waiting on Zoom?
I don't know.
Okay, but while he's seeing if anybody's on Zoom, I'll tell you about Ariel. Oh, wait.
so.
Yes, there are people.
Okay, we've talked on the phone a couple of times.
Annie's
My
on
husband,
there.
I think he works with me sometimes and has reached out to you. and then
Do I need to
I
accept
had a
them?
client
I
reach
just
out
did.
to you,
Okay.
and
You'll have to
he
look to
goes
see if
to
anybody else is
Eagle,
on
there.
yeah, pretty much. But you know,
So,
it was one of those things, but anyways. Without your voice sounded familiar.
yes, once I had a unique voice, you never know how to take that.
Well, I
Now,
was
is the frog unique
on the
or?
Zoom. Well, we did the Zoom also the last time you were here, and I was on the Zoom.
Oh, cool. So I'm just gonna sit today, but I asked him earlier, I do several different presentations, and since we don't have that, the one I was gonna do today really doesn't work. So we're gonna just be conversational. And what I want to talk about is, how many of you guys are, how long has everybody been doing this, by the way? 5 months, 5 months,
A little over a year.
year, month,
1.5 months.
2.5. Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to steal this. I want you to be closer to it so they can hear you talking and everything.
Oh, okay.
Directly off me.
You're fine, just.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Okay, so today,
Productivity coaching?
one of the things that we deal with new agents is, interaction equals experience, okay?
No, we'll swap. We have a small crowd today, so.
No, at this point, it's more hassle to move.
Okay.
We're good.
Appreciate it, though.
I felt kind of bad, there was like a handful of us in here. a bunch of
No worries, man. I like these chairs, actually.
Yeah.
This is kind of comfortable. Come on. So, I have to tell my wife has these comments.
So really,
Yeah, she loves them.
maybe you can trade them.
Well, it's the only way she can get above the fridge, so. All right, so we're gonna talk about something that newer realtors face that's harder to overcome than if you've been doing it a while, and that's weird buyer objections. And the number one weird buyer objection is whatever they can find on this, right? So we're gonna cover some of those. You're gonna give me some, and then I'm gonna tell you some, and we're gonna talk about some of the funnier ones. And that's one of the cool things about this job, and I think Courtney and I experienced it yesterday, is we did a Zoom call with a potential client. She was throwing up some objections on her credit. She was not moving forward. And at the end of the day, it was just kind of a bad scene. And we'll kind of cover that in a little bit. But about the majority of your, a realtor's job is, it's so ethereal. It's just eclectic as hell, man. I mean, you're a psychologist, you're an analyst, you're, whatever the day requires. And it's the same thing for lenders, by the way. The difference is, the realtor, you're the front of the transaction. Everybody else sort of revolves around you. And it kind of dictates how the transaction goes. So from initial contact, and then you're trying to get them in the loop or in the funnel so that you can get them to the table, and they say things like this. And this happened to me very recently. And actually, I fired the client. The realtor was mad at me for firing the client. And I said, good luck closing. And actually, this started last year. So the most recent thing was a couple of months ago. But like last August, this cat calls me up, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, we run the Wayfinder, right? So we did some credit work. I was like, here's the deal, man. You don't qualify right now. Here's the system I run called Wayfinder. We can go into that in another day. You really should know about it and the tools it offers. I said, here's what you got to do to get your credit up. Within a matter of 2 weeks, follow up. Hey, are you working on the stuff for your credit repair? Yeah. Hey, man. So my wife's buddy at the gym. Have you guys ever heard that? Now, not particularly that one. Throw some at me. Like,
Someone I work with.
okay.
Someone at church said,
Like, what did they say? Give me one.
the one that I can think of is what they said about Tabor home builders.
Uh-huh.
What they knew about. I
Okay.
can't remember specific.
Was it good or
Someone told me
bad?
Bad.
Bad? Okay.
Mine was my housekeeper's sister's cousin's.
Oh, boy.
What?
Oh, it's
What?
all
Very reliable source.
Hey, dude, write that one down.
Like, how-
Husbands, did you?
Housekeeper's sister's husband.
Housekeeper sisters.
Okay, friend, housekeeper's sister's friend. My housekeeper's sister's friend's kid.
And so what did they say?
What? They said that you shouldn't buy a house right now because they're just trying to take your money and you just need to wait.
No, write that down. Write that one. No, seriously, because we're gonna discuss these one-on-one.
My favorite was, I got an objection is, oh my God, you wanted to send these people to blah, blah mortgage company. They foreclosed on my mom, and I had to be like,
Oh, was there a reason
was
for
she
it?
not making the
What
payments?
was the reason?
Like, yeah, any mortgage company, if you stop making the payments, any mortgage company is going to eventually foreclose. Sorry.
What was the mortgage company?
Century 21 Mortgage.
Oh,
It was way back in the day when I worked over there.
which, by the way, Century 21 never foreclosed on anybody. Okay?
That may have been where she started, but Century
Just to let you
21, I'm
know.
sure they sold it to someone else.
BOK does not foreclose on people. You know who does? You do.
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're the evil realtors.
Anybody here have a 401k?
Yes.
So a 401k invests on average 3 to 5% of the, you put money in every month. Well, they don't just put that in a little ceramic piggy bank. They have to invest it. So in order to hedge risk, they invest in mortgage-backed securities, right? So they enter into a bond agreement with the mortgage-backed securities agencies, which are Fannie and Freddie or Ginnie. And whenever they're triggering events with that mortgage, they say, give me my house back. So in reality, we're foreclosing on each other. Everybody involved in the transaction is just like you. You don't inspect the home. You don't do the make-ready repairs. You don't do the title work. You don't do the lending, right? You just do your little part. Well, that's the way mortgages work. I mean, at the end, banks don't actually own the mortgages they service. They are no different than the waiter at Applebee's saying, here's your tab. They don't actually own the food that's being cooked, which that's a bad analogy. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so back to crazy house. So one of the things the only way to really combat this stuff, guys, is data. Knowledge is power. And what I love to do, what I get a lot of, for example, this kid, well, I was told that if I do this and this and this by my wife's buddy at the gym, then it will have a better result. And I'm like, does he do mortgages? Well, no, but he just bought a house last year. And I'm like, okay, things
So
change.
he's an expert.
Well, you know how it is. You guys face the same stuff. So things change. I'm like, you got to understand things change. Things change with credit algorithms. Things change with creditors in general. Things change with the mortgage policy. So what I would recommend to you with these sales objections where they say, don't buy a home right now. And I've got actually a comeback for that, but I don't want to do it just yet. But most of the time, you can find the answers in your own data, okay? Like if somebody says, well, you know, my buddy told me to do this, or my buddy says I can do this. And one of the things we get a lot is gift funds. So like, hey man, your mom or your dad or your partner can gift you, your spouse, and you'll see this a lot on like Facebook, but just them, they're the only ones who can do that. And that's not actually true. So we had a guy say, well, I'm getting a gift from my buddy. And it's like, a year ago, I would have said, okay, no problem. We have to establish a relationship, a long-term one. Did you go to college together? You know, I mean, and we have that happen a lot. Like, to me, friends help friends. But anyway, the problem with that, and we get these kind of objections a lot, like, it's none of your business, blah, 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 blah. But this just literally came out. You can see the date, February 10th, 2021. And source of gift equity, page 2. Go ahead.
For my wedding, in lieu of gifts, we're asking for cash for a down payment for a house.
That's a wedding registry. That's different.
Okay, so I just didn't know if that would be okay.
Yeah, you have to kind of document it. Like you have to set up a separate account for it.
Okay,
And that's really for an FHA.
yeah,
Like if you're doing an
So you
FHA.
can't just deposit
Yeah.
$12,000 cash into
So that's
your bank
fine.
account.
okay, wait, okay, good. I'm gonna go with this.
But like what happens is, you know, we have clients that'll raise an objection. My buddy said, you know, this. What I like to do is just emailing this stuff. Literally. And I'm like, did your buddy do his loan before February 10th of 2021 or after? Because if you read this, after February, which was last month, they changed the rules. So stop screwing with me because I get paid to know these rules. Your buddy doesn't. And so that kind of firmness is really brutal, but most people acknowledge it and they say, you're right, I mean, you really should have done that. But the one about not buying a house right now, what'd you say?
I said, well, you know, you could wait, we're still gonna take money, no matter when you buy a house, we're gonna take your money.
Yes.
So you might as well do it now while interest is low. Well, you're just gonna take my money and then next year I'll be upside down, which is probably true, I'll be upside down in my house. Oh, well,
Okay.
do you want, I said, you wanna keep paying rent? She paid $1,700 a month rent. I said, you want to keep paying $1,700 a month rent, because she was only looking at a $1,200 a month payment on a house. So I said, yeah, it's $500. This is, and I have another lady living in a hotel paying $450 a week. And she says the same thing. Well, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like the time's right. You
Okay.
know,
No, I mean, those are, but, okay, so there's valid objections, there's invalid ones. The invalid ones are stupid, like some guy who literally is a cashier at a convenience store, which is fine, as long as you're not giving stock advice. You know, but they do. And so it's like, I'm gonna take the, what is it, what do they call that in logic and critical thinking? Is it a red herring? I can't remember. Anyway, you take somebody who is not a bona fide expert, which obviously this person isn't, and then they just mess up your sales cycle. So how would you guys have responded to that objection? You don't get to answer. How do you respond? It's a bad time to buy right now. You're gonna take my money. And did they say you're going to take my money?
it's the realtors, we're terrible. It's us.
Okay.
We get so much of it for nothing.
Yeah,
So how do you respond to that? Because that's coming around a lot more, the latter part.
I say, I explain to them where the money goes.
Okay.
We don't just pocket every little cent of it, you know? I show that a whole graph where I show this is gonna go to your marketing, this is gonna go to taxes, this is gonna go to here, blah, blah, blah. It's
I
not like
think-
I'm just pocketing $12,000.
I didn't ask you.
Well, I do kind of think, you know, with a lot of these objections, there's kind of two kinds, right? When they say, oh, I don't think it's the right time to buy right now, I think good kind of best practice is to really dive a little bit deeper and be like, why do you think that? Because the surface level, whatever they're saying, it's probably not the actual reason. They're a little bit hesitant. And if you get to the heart of it, there's maybe, you know, like Perry said, you kind of have to be the psychologist a little bit And you kind of have to walk them through that. They're really just looking for someone to make them feel better about it, right? They say you buy with emotion and then justify with logic. So, and then B, sometimes they're just not worth messing with, right? Like if this lead isn't serious, it's better to just not waste your time on it, right? So I think if you can kind of identify maybe what that core reason is and then kind of make a judgment call.
So,
I think when you're talking to somebody that keeps asking those questions, I think it's best, you know, what she's saying is kind of have something in your back pocket to show them, but you just kind of reiterate another question. If I could sell your house for a right amount of money, and, you know, would you list with me, kind of lead back in and go around what they're asking, because what he's saying is they really don't care as long as they're making money, you know, at the end of the day. But I think.
well, it's two separate ones, like you're on the listing side and you're on the buy side.
Exactly.
So on the listing side, you know, like if you're talking about the realtor commission issue, you can just go to NAR. I mean, if you look at the amount of people that sell for sale by owner, and you look at statistically what they net versus what a realtor gets, I think the numbers are pretty firm from NAR's standpoint about why 86% of transactions, it's still up in the 80s, are handled by realtors. And it's not about the money they spend, it's about the money that they save. And by that, I mean lawsuits with the attached liability, not disclosing properly. You know, realtors protect you from all that. I mean, you guys have a sign.
The legalities of it all.
The legalities of it all, and then, but the other part of it is, you know, the way that I like to explain it, and I'm not a realtor, but when I could say, and I have a lot of them, because they won't tell you what they'll tell me. And they're like, oh, I don't need to, you know, I'm not doing this, blah, blah, I can do it myself. It's like, really? You're gonna be there for the inspection and navigate the inspection? You're gonna be there for the termite, navigate the termite? You're gonna be there for all the situations that could blow your deal? Because that's really what it's about. It's not about whether or not you have the ability to do it, it's whether or not you have the ability to do it right.
And time.
And the patience.
It's really the
Finding out where
massaging
chandeliers-
process.
And not really getting emotionally attached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just doing what.
Like yesterday, we had that CE class that was all about TRRs.
Yeah.
And if y'all were there, it was a great class because it was like, well, what's a FSBO's not gonna read this contract, they're not gonna know these deadlines. And someone, maybe they got an offer from an attorney or someone that can actually read the contract, seller may end up screwing themselves over and not realize, oh, well, the contract says that, you know, you don't have to paint this room because they don't like the pink color of that bedroom, because that's not a reasonable repair to put on a TRR. And that's if they even do a formal TRR form, because if it's FSBO, they may just say, well, I need you to fix this, and they need you to fix that. And then 2 days before closing, well, I need you to fix this too, and then this too, you know?
I won't do a FSBO anymore. I've got enough business, I won't do one. If someone says, hey, we're not using attorneys, or we're not using realtors, I'm like, and if they don't know, if they know each other, like I'm selling it to my brother, it's one thing. Let me caveat that. If it's somebody they don't know, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
Because the chance of that deal actually closing, the risk is, because what happens is, and this actually happened to me 2 weeks ago, and he did have a realtor, but the problem is he's an attorney. He does aviation transactions. I mean, I've known this guy for years. He literally does this for a living, right? It's very similar to real estate. He's buying from a contractor, $500,000 home, buying from a contractor. This guy works on houses all day. He probably knows what he's doing. They did have realtors, but somehow they managed to piss each other off so much that they blew the deal right before closing. Because their egos were writing checks that their wives would not let them cash. And one of the wives, she's an even meaner attorney than he was. Anyway, so they're sitting there like 3 or 4 days before closing, and I get an email from the realtor. She goes, don't cancel the transaction yet, which, I mean, we don't really have to do anything. We just don't close. And she's like, don't cancel the transaction. I'm gonna try to get in and save it. And she did. So the attorney's like, yeah. And, you know, it was an attorney who was using a realtor who was related to another attorney in the firm. So it was, you know, kind of this political deal. He's like, she'd be great for a first time home buyer, but she really didn't help me at all. And I've known this guy long enough. I was like, oh yeah, you're friggin' closing, aren't you? Because last week you were bitching about $6,000 in repairs on a $500,000 house. That's like complaining about your dessert tab when you just racked up $300 in steak. I was like, seriously, man? I was like, you were gonna blow this deal over that? He was like, well, you know. And I'm like, so she did her job, which was to cool you off, which is really the majority of your job.
Yes,
You have to remind them, honey, you're gonna have to make those repairs, we have 2 blocks an hour.
yes.
So you might as well make them, most of them.
Well, so with that whole listing objection of not, you know, that's the thing that a realtor really brings to the table, which is just like if your kid gets arrested for manslaughter, you're not gonna go use a public defender. You're gonna pay to use an attorney. Now, you can't quantify what that attorney does, but you know that your friends are like, you need to call this guy or whatever. I mean, so much of our jobs are not quantifiable and you can't put it down to this is worth $50. So back to that deal though, your objection, which is the biggest one we're gonna see this year. So how much do you think the Oklahoma metro area market collapsed after the mortgage crash? How much do you think we depreciated? We did depreciate.
In 2000, after the collapse in 2008.
It was more around 2011 before it all trickled
Right.
down, because we did have an oil boom in there.
I'd say like
30%?
I would say 10.
But it's even less, less than 10%.
You don't know, because you've heard me talking about it. Stop.
No, I don't. I'm just guessing. I
That's
don't
okay,
think it's
maybe
probably.
10, maybe.
That's it? So we got 2 out of, okay. So I have a business partner in a different venture and he downloaded all the county data. He bought it actually, and he ran an algorithm. Overall, the entire metro area, 6%.
Really?
Yeah. You may have neighborhoods that depreciated 30, but you also have other neighborhoods that actually kind of gained a little bit. Right? So if you look at the risk, we're going to have a correction. You go back 30 years, the biggest correction we have is 6% overall. So, you know, data is your friend, is what I'm really trying to say. When you have these objections, it's good to have that knowledge in your background, and you got to invest in yourself to learn a little bit about lending, a little bit about, you know, how the county assesses value. I mean, because you get hit with all these questions. So not only are you a psychologist and a business analyst and a marketer on your Insta and your Facebook, you know, which I know has to be the majority of your time, in order to overcome these stupid objections, you have to have the background knowledge. And you don't have, I have 20 years in the business, he's got 15, that you can, you know, I got it over years and years and years. But then when I first got in the business, I was reading 100 pages a night. I mean, just to learn it. I really recommend that because data is your friend overcoming bogus objections like, you're just going to take my money. And it's like, okay, so you're worried that the market's overheated. Do you think it, and you ask questions and you say, do you think it's going to be more overheated now than during the mortgage crash? And they'll say no. And you can say, okay, well, you know, the metro area really only depreciated overall about 6% during the last mortgage crash. And they'll say, yeah, but California. And then you can point to California and say, not only did, and California did crash in the 20s, but they also regained that in less than 5 years. And now they're eclipsed what the appreciation they lost. So, you know, as you lose at a rate of speed, you gain at the same rate of speed in real estate, at least most recent history. Same thing happened in Florida, same thing happened on the East Coast. So whenever people are like, well, you know, in California, it's like, yeah, but real estate is a long-term play, okay? You're a renter. You only know short-term.
And that's what I reminded her too. I said, in the meantime, how much rent have you thrown away? Well, we're just gonna wait 2 or 3 years. But in the meantime, you're paying $1,700 a month rent.
Maybe someone else.
Do the math, figure out how much your house is worth and say, this is probably how much you'd be paying if you
we're paying a mortgage.
Well, you
Right.
literally are paying a mortgage, but you're paying
Not paying
someone
yours.
else's mortgage.
Yes. that's what I said.
Okay, but here's the funny part.
Yeah.
What is the rate of appreciation in Oklahoma over the last 10 years? Oklahoma City in general, the metro. Yeah.
I don't know, and I wondered what you would think with people offering above comp price, you know, with the depreciation.
Depreciation decrease.
Well, but let's talk about, let's
How does that
go.
play?
The knowledge base is historical as well as current. Okay, you gotta have both. So invest in your brain matter. What do you think the rate of appreciation was over the last 10 years? Year over year, so,
Over the last 10 years, probably more than depreciation.
well, yeah. We've actually had both, so.
18%, I don't know.
I'm just
Throwing out
I
a
was
random
just
number.
wondering.
Yeah.
Saying year over year.
But it's not, it goes, I don't know,
Let's
did
say
it go up like 1% here even recently appreciate? So,
The app, so if you look at the years of depreciation combined with the years of appreciation, this is based on actual data from the county. And using algorithms to calculate it so that it's not anecdotal, okay? 1.5,
So,
I guess 18.
1.5% a year is what we average.
every year.
it's having depreciation, so that comes out to, look, over 10 years, 1.5 every year.
Yeah, so you would think 15%, but then you gotta keep in mind that you lost 6% for part of those years. And that was sudden, that was a rapid drop. And then slowly over time, you had, you know, so if you take it, you can have appreciation and depreciation within the same 10-year time span. So basically, what, you know, if you're in Oklahoma and people say it's a bad time to buy, it's a bad time to do this, you can't predict Oklahoma. We don't move at the same rate of speed that California, Florida. We're a true Midwest. We're more analogous to Tulsa and Wichita and Indianapolis. We are not analogous to Austin and Miami, but that's what's in the paper. And you know, you got Forbes out here who basically just literally pays some bozo to write some clickbait article about how amazing Oklahoma City is, and they literally live in India. Seriously, look at who writes that crap. Look at their author bios. I mean, so all that stuff is bunk. And your friends, you know, that's where you're getting all these objections. But the number one thing on your point of overpaying, the beauty of the American real estate system is the market determines what the market will do. It is a supply and demand market. Now, what I can tell you that if someone says, I'm not comfortable buying right now, that's valid. That's a very valid point because you're going to be in multi-offer. It depends on the price point, but you're going to be in multi-offer situations. You may be overpaying. But I can tell you from an analytical standpoint, just sheer economics, it doesn't matter. It does not matter, right? I mean, when you buy is kind of irrelevant. Like everybody talks about, well, I bought at the right time, right? You didn't know what you were doing when you did it. You don't. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I've been doing this a long time and I buy real estate. You can't time this. You can't even time when it's a bad time to get in. Like everybody right now is like, oh, we're gonna have a correction. Really? Really? Because if you look at the majority of states that have invested in the infrastructure like we have, and I'm talking about maps, you know, the Thunder, the new soccer arena, downtown OKC. We've got a food thing here that is rivaling Austin. It's not, he's from New York, so if I said New York, you get. So,
You like it?
well, he's from here.
Leaving New York to come here,
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
Yeah, we stay right by Times Square.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
very
my first
busy.
time, yes, very busy. It was really
That's
cold and
fun.
rainy.
And you went,
That's
yeah, I
fun.
mean, and you went during a pandemic.
Yeah, I
When
went
you're
during,
talking with somebody about the right time to buy, anytime's the right time to buy, you have money to put down, you know, equity in your home, transfer over, and if your dream is to size up, what are you wanting?
If
Because at
it's-
the end of the day, it's really,
That's
what
what I
like
like what he said about, it seems like it's probably something else, surely.
yeah.
If
what
it
is
fits your
sustainable?
personal goals and your personal timeline,
Yeah.
don't worry as much about the external market because over the course of time, it's a wash. You know,
yes.
and you can't really predict it.
And what you can say about that is, it was before my time, but there was a time when interest rates were what, 15, 18%?
Yeah, in the 80s.
And that was the right time for a lot of.
And here's the
people
thing,
buying.
they were variable.
I
They
did
were
that.
not
Yeah,
fixed.
mine was, I did that.
And so, you know, when you talk about people overpaying for property, okay. If you're overpaying by 10 grand and you need to sell within 2 years, yeah, that's a problem. You shouldn't do that.
Right. You're
But if
paying
you
to
think that
sell.
if you think that that rule ever didn't apply, you're wrong. It applied no matter what. You know, never sell within 2 years because you will not be able to recoup all of the costs. I mean, there's just not enough appreciation, right?
Right.
But here's the thing, on buyer objections in reference to timing the market, it's just as easy to time a stock. And you can't time a stock.
No.
Berkshire Hathaway, probably one of the most successful organizations in the world, literally just signed a deal in Texas for 4 emergency power stations. Okay. And it's like, oh, wow, this guy's genius, Warren Buffett. Oh, he never did. Warren Buffett has not outperformed the S&P in over 10 years. So basically, my wife is better at this than he is, right? At the end of the day, the market determines what the results are, not an individual. And all that really matters is if you go out and you own a newer car or a newer phone or newer clothes, right? You're buying value. Now, if you're like me, who doesn't ever shop, and my car's 11 years old, I'm not really a value purchaser until whatever I find is valuable. The housing is the same way. People move because they're having more kids, they hate their neighbors. There's always a value proposition, and it's never monetary. How many people do you know literally say, we've got a lot of equity, it's time to move on? No, there's always something else. So people don't buy because of the market. They never really do. Does that make sense? And should they pay over? Well,
If they want it.
if you're sitting, rates have jumped above 3 now, pretty much for everybody, unless you're bulletproof and putting down a ton of money. So let's compare 3% to 5%. It's over 20 to 25% difference just in the interest. So on a $200,000 loan, right, at 3%, you're paying $6,000 a year in interest. If it jumps up to 4.8, which is what it was right before the pandemic, back in late 2019, say August, that would have cost $200,000 house, $400 more a month in interest. Okay, just interest. Now, what is $400 a month in purchase power? And let's just include taxes and insurance and all that. A ton. So you're paying 15 grand. I just had a girl pay 15 grand over list price in Moore. She was like, I gotta be in Moore School District. I've got a kid. I'm a single mom. The realtor was like, this is what the market is. And she did it because she's smart enough to understand math. And she was like, and we got her a 2.25% rate, by the way. We locked her in on an FHA deal at 2.25%. Just waiting a couple of months would have blown her budget. So yeah, you may be overpaying right now, but your cost of funds is so low that it's okay to make a mistake, because you may not, and the big thing to make people understand is you're not necessarily getting a benefit on your principal reduction, but you're not paying $400 a month more on a $200,000 house than you would have in 2018. The math. And if you ever have somebody who says that, you can just say, hey, if I showed you mathematical logic, would you not agree that that's not a valid argument? And just email me, and then I'll make him do a fee sheet. Seriously, if you have somebody who says this is a bad time to buy, email us, and we will send you ammo. Because the reason I'm not buying right now is not because of the market correction, it's because of the quality and the competition. And that is valid. You know?
I've had some people say that, like, you know, we thought about selling, but I hear that there's such a shortage in the market that we don't want our house to sell so quick and then we have to settle for a house. You know, we need to move immediately or, you know, yeah, that's valid.
Yeah.
That's pretty valid, yeah. I can't promise you.
Yeah, if you can't
We'll
find
sell
what
within
you
a
want,
week.
the thing about it is, next year, you're not gonna be able to find what you want, it's gonna be even higher.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And the thing about it is, it's been that way for quite a while. We were dealing with this in 2018, guys. This is not COVID related at all. This was going on in early 2019, parts of late 2018. This supply demand thing. Seriously, look at the NAR stats and you will see that the supply curve has been going down for quite a while. And the appreciation has been going up. But we've been getting so many transplants because you have to understand that the politics of California, New York, and Florida, a lot of conservatives, this is political. A lot of conservatives are sick of living there. Like the majority of people I've done, it's because of, I've done one because of crime. I'm talking about, it was February last month. God, that seems like years ago.
I know, right?
I closed a bunch of transplants, or maybe it was January, I can't remember, but they were moved here for all kinds of reasons, but it really came down to where they were from and what it was like there. And they just wanted this, which is just, you know, honestly, it's a pretty nice friggin' place to be. Okay, give me another, so the sale, but the whole bad time to buy objection, does that make a little more sense now? That, you know, there really has never been anything, you know, as long as you're holding, if you can hold for 5 years, if you look at California, which is the worst, or the condo market in Miami in like 2008, those condos now are worth way more than what they were after the crash. They're worth way more than what they were before the crash. So those people who held are now in a gold mine situation. Those,
Well, that's what I told her too, exactly, if you're just, she's not planning, this is gonna be her forever home, so jump on it.
well, when they say, I don't want to, if they say, well, we're paying $1,700 a month now, and you say, well, quit renting, and they're like, no, we don't want to do a mortgage, or we don't want to, it's like you have a mortgage, you just don't know it.
So when people like, when you, I mean, have any of y'all been in like a sales profession before real estate where it's just, okay, so what they always taught me to do was, you know, we have 6-month-long sales cycles in one of my previous sales jobs. It's a long time. And if you waste, you know, 3 or 4 months on someone who ultimately doesn't pan out because of their objections, you've wasted a lot of time. So what they would say from the get-go is once you have those objections and you can kind of feel they're digging their heels in regardless of the data that you present them with, you know, you just got to ask them a question and you got to be straight up and say, if I can show you that this is not the case, would you be interested? Yes or no? And you'll instantly be able to tell by their body language, by you can see them thinking about it. The ones who are just going to waste your time, they don't really care about the objection, right? They're just not ready. They have their own personal reasons. They'll probably be like, well, I don't know, you know, and it's just like, okay, at that point, you know, it's not just the objection. It's not just the data that they care about. It's something else.
Say, call me when you're ready.
Right. And ultimately, you're better off, you know, over the course of time, not spending that much time trying to convince someone who you can tell from the get-go, it's not really the objection that they care about, and it's their own personal thing, right?
On the personal thing, sometimes it's you, by the way. And I tell clients all the time, because they'll hit me with a bunch of stuff, and I'll be like, I don't think we're a good fit, you know? I mean, I have clients who, you know, if they start lying to you a lot, or like, just, you know, you can tell they're kind of full of it. I'm like, I'm a blunt, straight up guy. I gather those kind of clients. Like if they're trying to play, you know, like he recently had a client who's playing all these lenders against each other. And most guys who've been in it a while, it's like, yeah, you should go really do business with that guy. And they're like, what? You don't want my business? No, I don't. I don't. You know, I mean, some business is not worth having.
It'll go be somebody else's problem.
Yeah. Now, sometimes some of that business is the funnest to close though, right? Like there is kind of some fun in that. Now, not on the internet rates versus local guy stuff, but, okay, so back to the credit stuff, because I said I'd come back to that. That we see a lot of what you're talking about, which use stats to overwhelm and say, yeah, you're wrong because of this, but it doesn't mean you're wrong if you're not comfortable. But don't use what somebody told you, it's a bad market, unless they can prove to you it's a bad market. Did they provide you with any data? And they'll say no, because it's just getting your hair cut, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, that's bad. Or, oh, people are way overpaying. We don't know that. We don't know whether they're overpaying or whether what's going on. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Because if you would have asked any long in the tooth person, we were expecting a correction 2 years ago. I mean, it's like, this has to stop. But then we look at other jurisdictions and it doesn't have to stop. You look at Austin, Denver. My cousin lives in Denver. And she literally calls me and says, I'm thinking about buying a house. She does this every 3 months. Thinking about buying a house. Where are you gonna buy it? This is what I want. This is what I'm gonna do. Okay, fine. And then she'll call back and be like, no, it's not the right time. But every property has been going up for her to where, and I kid you not, she bought her first home in Colorado for like 150, sold that for 400, and then bought another one in downtown Denver that was a gutter, and then her and her boyfriend rehabbed it and turned it into a duplex, which was kind of weird. And then they sold that for like 8 something. So but she hadn't bought anything since then. But she's like, no, I'm gonna wait a little bit. And I'm like, whatever. Of course, it's my cousin. I don't really care. And so it's just been going up and up and up. And now she'll call me and she's like, it's just ridiculous here. Are we gonna be that way? I live in the downtown core. We are gonna be that way down there.
Okay, you're seeing $300 a square foot in some of those neighborhoods.
As a matter of fact, yeah, I just pulled a comp for a guy yesterday. And
You're down north of downtown, where you are, up in Crown Heights, or up in the.
no, I used to live there. I don't like, they make you put in certain fences, man. My neighbor had a horse in the backyard. I love where I live. I used to live on a golf course and my stuff got too tall. I get text. Are you okay, Peter? Your yard's a little out of control.
One of our attorneys couldn't park his truck in the front yard, in the driveway. It had, in Crown Heights, if it was a pickup, it had to be in the garage.
Yeah, they made me tear down a fence, brand new fence. Okay, but, okay, so the credit stuff. So I'm gonna email you guys some stuff on the sales objection for value and overpaying, okay? I need will you tear out a sheet of your paper and have everybody write down their emails for me?
Yeah.
Just so, and literally just so you can snipe back at people, and you're not trying to beat them up, just trying to hold them accountable. So on the credit stuff, that's where you see a ton of stuff of, I read this, I heard this, da-da-da-da-da. Okay. I want to go ahead and cover this because we dealt with it yesterday. When your client says they're using a credit repair company, the first thing you ask them is, do you pay them a monthly fee? Okay. Because if they say, if they give you an objection of, I can't buy right now, I'm working on my credit, right?
You're paying somebody, you're
And,
paying somebody to do it.
and well, yeah, or they're doing it themselves. Okay. First off, there is zero good information on the internet about credit. Zero. It's all garbage. I mean, even from the credit agencies, it's garbage. And the reason for that is, and this is kind of handy to know, there are over 15 different scoring models. So if you go to Credit Karma, they're using a totally different scoring. They use what's called the Vantage scoring model, which is a consumer-based, which is, by the way, the least intense algorithms, and it produces an absolutely bogus score. That's why, it's amazing how many people say, why is my score so much lower than what my Credit Karma was? And I just ask them, did you pay for it? No, it's free. Well, you get what you pay for, don't you?
She gives us like 3 different numbers of
Is
what
that
her
like
credit
that
is.
typical?
What?
Units of 7.
Difference with that website versus reality?
Any free website is not going to give you an accurate result because they all have their own algorithms, so it's not the same. So like they can project an idea of what they think it might be, but Perry was even telling me he thinks a lot of those places will give you an inflated score, right?
Yeah, let me ask you this. They all offer services, pay for services to protect your credit. Are you gonna pay somebody to protect your crappy 550 score? Or are you gonna pay somebody to protect your 680 score? Which one are you gonna protect? So they have a vested interest in inflating scores, right? I mean, you know, it is what it is, but yeah, there's different algorithms and different FICO scoring models. I use FICO as a generic term. FICO is actually a trademark term. It has nothing. It's literally like a Chevy Caprice. But we all use FICO. What's your FICO score? That's actually just one of the models. They got the Beacon score, and they're tweaked. So the average credit algorithm includes more than 27 different factors, right? There is no one, including myself, that can tell you, which this drives me insane. If you pay down your credit cards to 30% or lower, it will really boost your score. That's not true. You know, that's not true. We don't know, because there's some general guidelines. Here's the number one: pay your damn bills. Outside of that, you know, but the other part is debt utilization is a big part of it. How long ago a derogatory was is a big part of it, but that's generalities. The problem is your consumers are like, well, we're working on our credit. We're working on our credit. What are you doing? They're going to internet sites like NerdWallet, and they're doing what NerdWallet tells them. And probably 40% of it's accurate. But like yesterday, when I ran her Wayfinder, sorry if I'm pointing, by the way. Remember she was like, we pay off all our balances. It said, increase your balance. Because they're not utilizing their credit. So the people that are like, I have great credit because I pay off my credit cards every month. It's like, yeah, that doesn't give you great credit. You know, you can't be graded on something you don't do. And that's what credit scores are. So if you have someone that says, I'm working on my credit, and you say, well, where are you getting your information to work on your credit from? Just tell them. Say, that's not how it really works. Well, I read it on the internet. Well, that doesn't mean that it works. And tell them every lender out there has access to tools, and they generally don't charge you, and they'll send you a report that says do exactly this, and your score will go up 40 points. And that is true. I mean, now some lenders like B of A or Chase don't allow their loan officers to access that because they consider it credit manipulation, which they consider fraud.
Which is crazy.
It's literally all manipulated.
Most bank bankers are kind of adverse to it. They consider it credit manipulation. I don't trust credit reports. I don't believe you should judge somebody by a number. I mean, I'm glad in college, if women judge me by a number, I'd be toast. You gotta give me a little chance to prove myself, right? I mean, if you judge me by my looks, I'm sure you would worse.
They judge you by a number now. It's 6 feet.
It's just so backwards. You charge somebody that can barely afford a house, 7%, interest rate, and then you charge somebody that can pay a house basically with cash, you charge them a 2% rate.
It's carrot and stick, it's risk reward.
Yeah, right, but it's backwards because you would think if someone can afford the house, like you're saying, you're judging them off of their credit, when if they have the money to pay for it, they should have a lower interest rate so they can pay it off faster.
Yeah, but it's risk. I mean, people with lower credit create a higher risk, and investors, 401ks, your people that run all the 401ks and the pension plans are like, we'll buy this, but we want a better yield. And that's fair.
It is fair.
Now, whether or not it should be based on only credit score, that's the argument.
Right.
And that's how we do it right now. So, and they just changed all this, by the way. And that's one of the reasons you're seeing rates jump. It's not necessarily the market, it's the fees that we have to pay upstream, which apply to every lender, by the way. So, but back to these objections. So the credit issues, it's like, I'm working on, if they're doing that, then that's somebody that's never going to come back into the fold, because if they're doing it themselves, it's never going to work unless they just pay everything off. But what's funny is you can also re-age bad credit. It's called re-aging. It's where you go and this sucks because bankers tell people to do this all the time. They say, go pay these collections off and your score will go up. And that may be true, or it may not. Because if it re-ages an old account and brings it to new status, you're toast. But let's talk about the people that pay for credit repair. Here's the thing. If they say, well, I'm on this credit repair program, blah, 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 I should be ready in 6 months. which you're like, okay, great. That's not true. I mean, the only reason that's going to take him 6 months is because the credit repair agencies charge them a monthly fee. And if you charge them a monthly fee and you take care of everything within 3 months, they're going to cancel the account. So what they do is they slow play all of the credit repair. They start with disputes. And the reason they start with disputes is because that gives you your biggest bang for your buck. Because if you dispute it, it will pull it out of your score model. So if it's a derogatory account and you're disputing it, the algorithms pull it out to where it's not calculated into your score. The minute that dispute is removed, which there are regulations which do require that, your score drops again. But at first blush, and ask them if they say, well, I'm using a credit repair place, I don't want to do anything just yet. Say, hey, was one of the first things they did start disputing your accounts? Why, yes, it was. And I'll have you you guys some stuff on why that's bad, okay? For mortgage purposes. It's not bad for car purposes. And so you email them that, you say, okay, let's have an actual lender look at it. And they'll be like, no, I want to do this. And then you can say, well, how long did they tell you this would take? 3 months. How long have you been paying? 6. That's exactly what
That
happened.
is
right?
exactly what happened. Yeah, I was like, okay.
Well, if they're in that phase of it, then they're starting to get a little frustrated. And I mean,
Yeah,
after we had that deal yesterday, boom, she had it
Ready to
done
roll.
within an hour.
yeah.
She
But
can
she-
prove it.
No.
She just sent me a trailer. And I was like, 10 times harder. to get it.
So that's how if you have I'm working on my credit or my credit needs help, that's how you deal with that. And so
So
we'll
kind of
email.
call you,
Get it with every lender I know that I hang out with the exception of Nick Utesh, who's my bro, but he's
My
from
bro.
top originator in the state, so he has 0 time. I do it because it's fun, right? I mean, I have developers downtown that are buying $800,000 houses, $1 million houses. They're boring. I've known those guys for years. First time home buyers that are needing help. That's kind of the fun stuff. I don't tear up, but that's kind of close. I mean, it's better than the McDonald's ads my wife cries at. So that's why most guys will do it. I mean, I know people at Great Plains that do it. I even know people at Cornerstone that will do it.
Angie,
Angie
she does the
will.
same thing that you do.
But she won't.
She'll tell them, or maybe not the same thing, but she'll tell them, because she told Eric
Yeah.
that you basically fired justifiably. But she told him, hey, pay this down, stop buying new cars. And he listened and boom, we got him closed.
So, sending someone to you, what if they say, well, doesn't it hurt my credit to pull my credit and have to look at it and then I'm not ready to buy it for another year? Or
Yeah, that's.
how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's like saying, yeah, I'd buy that, but I don't want to pay the 7% sales tax. Because that's kind of what it's going to happen. If a client goes to multiple lenders and we run his credit, they can expect their score to drop about 8 points.
How many is multiple?
Oh, anything more than 1.
Well, I
So
thought they
they put
had,
two, you'll drop.
It could.
but I thought they had a window to,
Take a 30-day.
but I'm talking about after that window, if we're working with you, you help them repair their credit, right? To
Yeah.
get ready to buy, so they pull it now and then they don't buy until July. So how do you do it? How do you juggle that score?
Well,
It's not a permanent score.
Yeah.
Your credit score changes every day.
Right.
So yes, it
right,
may drop 8 points today because
He pulled it.
people pulled it.
it
But
will,
that doesn't mean it's permanently dropped 8 points.
And it only really is gonna affect you if you're consistently doing that over time on a regular basis, which you're not.
No.
8 points in the whole scheme of things, it's not gonna, crush you.
yeah, credit goes from 450 to 850. So if 8 points makes a difference, then you probably have an issue bigger than me running.
Well, and I think people, I get asked all the time, if I apply, my credit, it's gonna hurt my credit, I'm not ready,
It will impact credit on average if they go to multiple people. It's really when you go to 2 or 3 and you just start stacking them up, and they say within a 30-day period, it doesn't impact it, I'm sorry, see credit reports where it did.
It did,
So-
no way, who told that? What? It
What,
does?
okay,
I was told that
remember,
we have 30 days. and
these,
you can shop.
I get it, but these are algorithms. It doesn't matter what you've heard, even from me. The only way to really, like I said, pay your bills. That's the only 100% true thing. Everything else is up for debate. These are algorithms, these are mathematical, this is actuarial, this is not, you can do this, you can do this. Now, what they do say is, if you go to multiple lenders for the same purpose, auto, consumer, mortgage, within 30 days, it should not impact your score. But I've seen it happen. I mean, I've had people call me up and I'll say, how many lenders you been to? I've been to 2. It's like, well, what'd they tell you your score was? Well, the last guy said my score was 620. I won't pull his credit. It ain't happening. I'll say, look, man, if I pull your credit and you drop anything, you can't get a decent rate. You need to call lender A or B and say, lock them up. And quit being a little punk and shopping everybody with a 620 score. That's when you say, thank you, sir, and I have nothing. I mean, you got to know your place in the
Oh, I
hierarchy.
have people like that, they're just a cold lead that's just begging to get into a house and, you just try to send them to the right lender and ask the right questions and they're basically telling you they don't have any credit.
You mean they don't have any credit?
Well, they're bad credit.
Yeah, but bad
Or
credit
made
is
bad
temporal.
decisions.
Bad credit is temporal. That is something that is 100% in the control of the consumer. You can beat an algorithm. It's no different than a guy who can count cards can whip Vegas pretty hard. They have to throw him out to beat him, okay? So a consumer can control their score. It's just they gotta learn how to count cards. So if you want to beat the system, you have to learn the system. Now, you can't learn all the tricks, but with the system, I should have actually just done training on this. We really went.
I'm
But-
very intrigued.
But if you look at,
A lot of people are worried about credit.
well, but okay, so this technology went around 6 years ago, right? I mean, and we use it for people that are 700 and they're buying a, $600,000 house and they're in construction, they're building it. And it's like, okay, dude, because of Fannie and Freddie and the fees, it's going to cost you an extra point because your score is 700. We really need you at 740 to avoid this fee. And it's $6,000 and it's going to cost them $3,000 to get their score above 740. That's how I get a lot of business. It's the value proposition, right? And every client can do this. It just takes cash. I mean, or in a lot of ways, as a matter of fact, I pulled mine up yesterday. I showed you guys
Oh,
mine.
yeah.
And did you see where it said remove as authorized user?
No.
Yeah, like on mine, which, I mean, I can't pull up another client, so I just pulled up mine. And I was a 700 score back then. And your credit will go from 740 to 680 in a heartbeat. But I ran the Wayfinder and it said the first 3 were remove as authorized user. Well, that's a phone call. That's a phone call. Another good one is, and it depends on who they are, add an authorized user. Yeah. I added a relative to my Amex account and her score popped like 60 points.
I had my son and he had a score.
Yeah.
Before I did it, he didn't have a score.
Yeah, so if they want to make improvements, stop with Continental Credit, which is out of Denver, or these guys that do it for a living. There is one good one. Her name's Becky Estep. She's out of North OKC. Okay. Her name's Becky Estep or Estep. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I got the Becky part right.
Yes.
So,
You got the Becky right.
I've seen that name.
so I've heard great things about her, but she's not going to be like me where it's like, okay, we can fix this in 30 days. So what they do, since we're digressing, we print off a report that says, do this, this, and this. And it may be like in your case, your client's case, to get his score up, it said, put $10 on your credit card and pay off this $7,000 repo. I will not advise somebody to pay off a $7,000 repo. because they were currently reporting the repo, by the way. So a lot of creditors, sorry to get into the weeds, a lot of creditors will report improperly. Okay, they will code they call it tape. They run their tapes once a month and they send them to the bureaus. But they will code what they're, they'll code it as a charge off instead of a repossession. So it treats it as a revolving, which is and they just change the way they report to do the maximum damage they can. Okay, because if they can do maximum damage and hold you hostage of increasing your score, then you have more likely to get reimbursed.
Hey, guys, I'm sorry. It is, it's after 12. Y'all can stay here by all means, but I don't want anyone to feel like they have to stay. Just because, we're done, but by all means, keep asking Harry questions or whatever.
I did have a question for, you mentioned, we were talking about Berry Rock and you wanted to comment about that. You mind sharing your take? Mark?
Yeah, so I'm actually a partner in a private equity firm that does the same thing as Berry Rock. The difference is the average price per foot that Berry Rock purchases at is incredibly low. So they're looking for the steal. They're looking for the bargain. And I think you experienced this.
Yeah, I don't know how they're buying anything in today's market.
They're buying, literally they're $15, $20 per foot lower than.
And they're telling people, well, part of their steal is you've got to ask the seller to pay all your closing costs or a large portion of your closing costs, which is going to jack that price per square foot up even more in today's market. If it's listed for 110 a square foot and you need to ask for $7,000 in closing costs, well, you just raise that from 110 to 115 a square foot, and they're buying in the 70s and 80s a square foot, maybe up to 90s.
Their average, we pulled all of their data. My business partner he worked for Goldman Sachs. He's a baller, way smarter than me. I just kind of lie and pretend. But he's really into data analysis, and he's right. He can prove almost any kind of question out using algorithm. Plug the data in, it will produce But so the average price per foot, and we bought the data I think up through 2019, 2018, was $78.
So you're telling me when Berry Rock tells you to go pick your house, and blah, 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 and come to us, they don't buy, they only buy houses, they won't go up that, if the house is 100 and something square foot?
The house has to meet has to be approved by their program too.
And
I had one where a buyer was using Berry Rock, it was a short sale, and they waited until 3 days before closing to tell everyone, oh, this house doesn't qualify for the program.
Yeah, they told me we couldn't look for, we had repos yesterday and they, before I showed it.
So Berry
So
Rock,
they've even stopped that. I
so
think
they
that
only do
they're
houses
not-
that are like $80 a square foot?
You
That's
know,
their average.
he didn't say that to me. He
They're
just-
having to put money down. Berry Rock's what, 7%? So they're making them put 7% down. And then they're saying, well, yeah, you can make a full price offer, but you're gonna ask for closing costs.
Yeah, they
And then
have
it's
a
gotta,
really large
then it's
chart.
gotta appraise, and they're not paying a full-fledged appraiser to go out there, they're paying their guy to pull comps. The one that they didn't do a full-fledged appraisal on. They just had someone go by, take pictures, and look at it. And then that's when they said, oh, it doesn't qualify for our program, because it wasn't good enough of a deal.
So, but here's the thing, we would do the exact same thing. I'm not
great to know.
I'm not throwing stones at Berry Rock.
Right,
What I'm saying is for that
You got some skin.
to work, you really can't, you're not buying a Tabor, right? Oh, and you know how whenever people talk trash about Tabor, you know what I tell them? You get what you pay for. I sent him a website to a builder that I really love, who literally will not touch your house for less than 250, 300.
So you don't like, so Tabor is it a good builder? I thought-
No, they're a great builder.
Okay.
You get what you pay. You know, I don't like Ideal. I didn't like Home Creations when they first started. I hated them. I hated financing them. But at the end of the day, you learn to realize buyers get what they paid for. I'm not kidding. The market literally will establish the balance. You know, Roush Coleman,
Reason why
Seriously?
Ross Coleman can sell houses.
I mean,
They are the Kmart of,
The Raj Coleman,
Yeah.
it is actually.
but people will buy them because it's, if they want a new house, it's the only place they can get a new house for under $200,000.
yeah, I mean, you get what you pay for.
They don't even come with microwaves.
The problem is when you want a Porsche and you have a Pinto budget.
Yeah. So if you were
Right.
going.
She was thinking with appliances. I
If you were gonna
I
go with
get
that,
it, sometimes it gets all negotiable.
Tabor, Home Creations,
All negotiable.
Two Structures, whoever it is,
Mhm.
you would, if you had to pick from those, you could pick Tabor over Home Creation and Ideal.
I would,
I would all day.
I would.
I like to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Tabor seems to have at least a good standard